Lesson 9.5, Video 4. Notice we are out of order. We're going to do example 7 first. Here we have a couple things we want to make sure we're clear on before we get started. The first fraction, or first number 1, should be written as a fraction. We have a subtraction problem, so change that to adding a negative. And now we're off and running. Now notice that we have one denominator that's a trinomial. So it is in our best interest to factor that trinomial to help us decide what that common denominator is going to have to be. So we have b. We are looking for two numbers that have a product of negative 16 that has a sum of 6. That would be a positive 8 and a negative 2. Now that was an important step for us because now we have a better idea of what that common denominator will be. Our common denominator needs to have a b minus 2 binomial, because remember they are itself. B minus 2 is one thing. We can't look at that and say, oh, I need a b. No, it's one thing. So b minus 2 must be present in our common denominator, and so must b plus 8. So that is our common denominator. At the same time, let's talk about excluded values. What would cause these denominators to be 0? Well, b cannot be a positive 2, because that would be dealing with this binomial, and b cannot be a negative 8, because that would cause this binomial to be 0. So those are excluded values. If we happen to get one of them as a solution, that solution becomes an extraneous solution. So let's get a common denominator for all these terms. So the first one needs everything. So this one needs to be multiplied by, now I know it needs everything, so I'm just going to write b squared plus 6b minus 16. So I notice right now that this v should be a b. So that's a typo. So I'll rewrite this here. So I'm going to write it as a trinomial. Because eventually I'm going to have to solve for a variable. I could write it as two binomials, b plus 8 times b minus 2, but eventually I would have to FOIL it, so I'm going to leave it like this. The second fraction has everything it needs. The last fraction has a b minus 2, but it needs a b plus 8. Okay, so now our next step would be to rewrite this. So I have a b squared plus 6b minus 16 minus 3, that's this part, equals, and on this side I have a binomial right here that needs to be FOILed. And I get b squared plus 5b plus 8b plus 40. So notice that there's a square present, so we have to put everything on one side and set equal to 0. Before I do so though, I'm going to clean up each side. So on this side I have minus 19. On the right side I have b squared plus 13b plus 40. Now I'll start moving things around. Now the good news is when I subtract b squared, they cancel and I no longer have a quadratic equation, which means now I don't have to follow the rule of getting everything to one side, so I'm just going to bring 13b over, which gives us negative 7b. I'll add 19 to both sides. I have a negative 7b equals 59. Divide both sides by a negative 7, and b is equal to negative 59/7. You can make that a decimal if you like, but that's the exact answer. I look at my excluded values, it's neither one of those, so that is considered a solution. So this ends lesson 9.5, video 4.